We are jumping into lesson 7. There's no PowerPoint or video to go with this lesson. It's a pretty short and sweet and simple lesson that hopefully doesn't take too much time. So make sure you have your packet in front of you. We are on page 523, and we're going to go through the workbook together. And then you will do the independent practice. We'll review a couple of those, and then you will do the homework. Remember, the answer key for the homework gets posted the next day under the next day's module on Canvas. All right, so lesson 7, use benchmark fractions to compare and order. So yesterday we used the least common multiple to help us compare and order fractions, and we had to do a lot of work with that. We had to find the least common multiple and then multiply and then compare our fractions, and they all had to have the same denominator or the same numerator. What we're doing today is a simpler way, an easier way to compare and order fractions, where all you have to do is draw number lines, graph your fractions on the number lines, and then compare them. It's going to be super simple. So read at the top where it says benchmark fractions are common fractions such as 1/2 that are often used to compare and order fractions. So when we are comparing fractions, even if the problem doesn't say 1/2, we can always use 1/2 as our benchmark. Math in My World example 1. A recipe for granola uses 5/8 cup of raisins and 1/6 cup of dried cranberries. Is there a greater amount of raisins or cranberries? So the two numbers that we are working with that we need to compare are 5/8 and 1/6. So even though 1/2 is not in that fraction, I'm still going to use it as my benchmark. So what they did is they graphed 1/2. Which would be right here. So they drew their number line, they divided it in half, and then they marked where 1/2 was. Now, since we're working with 5/8, we need to draw another number line and divide it into 8 pieces. So we have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and so on until we have a whole. And then they did the same thing with 1/6. They drew their number line and they divided it up into 6 pieces until they got to 1. Now, they graphed 5/8 and 1/6 on each number line. Now we have to look at it and figure out where it falls in relevance to 1/2. So I draw a line down mine to show where 1/2 would be on both of those number lines. Since they are lined up, you can just draw a line straight down. So you need to make sure your number lines are lined up equally. Now, if you look at it, 5/8 is after 1/2, which means it's greater than 1/2. And 1/6 is before 1/2, so that means it is less than 1/2. So number 2 says to compare, 5/8 is greater than 1/2, and 1/6 is less than 1/2. So what that means is 5/8 is automatically greater than 1/6, because 5/8 is greater than 1/2 and 1/6 is less than 1/2. So 5/8 is greater than 1/6. So there is a greater amount of raisins in the granola recipe. That was so much quicker and so much easier than having to find the least common multiple and get the same denominator and multiply and figure it all out to compare that way. This way we can just draw a quick number line, graph it, and figure out which one is greater and which one is smaller. All right, I'm going to jump to my notes section for our guided practice so I can draw underneath it. We are going to skip example 2 because I'm not a fan of example 2. They want you to do a couple other things, and I'm trying to keep it simple for you since we're doing virtual e-learning and I can't be with you in person. We're just trying to keep it easy and simple. So skip example 2, go to the next page, page 524, and find your guided practice. It says use a benchmark fraction to compare. Write greater than, less than, or equal to. All right, so when we are using our benchmark fraction, we are always going to have 1/2. Lucky for us, 1/2 is one of the fractions we have to compare. So first I'm going to draw my number line for 1/2. And since the denominator is a 2, I need 2 equal pieces on my number line. And that's my 1/2. Then I'm going to draw my number line for my fourths, And since my denominator is 4, I need 4 equal pieces. So I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 4/4, which is equivalent to 1. Now I need to graph both of those fractions on my number line. So I'm going to change colors here. I'll change to yellow. 1/2 and 3/4. Well, you can tell just by looking at your number line which one is greater. 3/4 is greater than 1/2. So in that little circle for number 1, I would put a greater than symbol. Graph it, and then you can just look at it to tell you, and look at the picture and it'll tell you which one is greater. To me, this is so much simpler than having to change the denominators to be the same. All right, I'm going to erase this, and then we'll do number 2. All right, number 2. 3/6 and 3/4. All right, so let's use 1/2 as our benchmark. So I'm going to draw my number line and graph my 1/2. It needs to be in 2 equal pieces. Now I need to graph my number line for my 3/6. So I need 6 equal pieces since my denominator is a 6. So I always divide in half first, and then my other marks. So I have 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and then 6/6, which is equal to 1. Put a 1 here. All right, and then 3/4. So I need one more number line. And this one gets divided into 4 equal pieces. So I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 1. All right, now let's graph the fractions we need to compare. We need to compare 3/6, which is right here, and 3/4, which is right here. And then our benchmark is right here with the 1/2. Well, 3/4 is greater than 1/2, and 3/6 is equal to 1/2. And so since 3/6 is equal to 1/2, that means that 3/4 is greater than 3/6. All right, so in that circle, you should draw a less than sign because 3/6 is less than 3/4. Pretty simple. Draw your number line and graph it. That's all you got to do. I like this way a lot more than what we had to do yesterday. But yesterday was kind of fun having to do all that math. But this way is much easier. What I want you to do now is I want you to find your independent practice page, which is page 523. Do this page, pause the video, do this page, and then I'm going to do a couple as an example, and then you can check your work with that, and then you'll do your homework and check your answer with the answer key that is on Canvas tomorrow. It won't be on there until tomorrow. So pause the video, do some independent practice, and then come back. All right, we are going to go over a couple problems from the independent practice before you move on and do your homework. I'm not going to do 3 or 4 because they already have the number lines written for you, and all you need to do is graph them and compare them. So I'm going to jump down to, let's do number 6. Okay, for number 6, we have 2/3 and 1/6. So I need to draw my benchmark fraction first, which is always 1/2. Then I need my other number line, and I need to graph 2/3, so I need to divide my number line into equal thirds. And then 3/3, which is a whole. And then 1/6. So I need to divide another number line into 6 equal pieces. Four, 6, 5, 6, and then a whole. Notice how my number lines are all equal. I can't have one number line that's a half and then a third, because that doesn't actually show me how to compare them. If the number lines aren't equal, you can't use that as a way to compare. Okay, I'm going to erase that so it doesn't get confusing. All right, now I need to graph my 2/3, which is right here, and my 1/6, which is way over here. Now draw my fraction, or my 1/2 all the way down. 2/3 is greater than 1/2. 1/6 is less than 1/2, which means that 2/3 is greater than 1/6. So even though they don't have the same denominator, if we are using benchmark fractions and number lines, we can still compare them. We need to have a common denominator if we're doing multiplication and solving it that way, but if we're drawing a number line and graphing them, then it is okay to have different denominators. All right, so that was number 6. We'll just go 6, 8, and 10. So let's do 8. Let me erase all this. Okay, so I am working with 1/4 and 4/5. So first thing I do, draw my benchmark fraction, which is always 1/2. And then, since my next fraction is 1/4, I need to divide my number line into 4 equal pieces. So I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 1 whole. And then my other fraction is 4/5, so I need a number line cut into 5 equal pieces. This one's a little harder to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. So I have 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and then 5/5, which is 1 whole. So now I need to graph the fractions I'm working with. I'm always working with 1/2, even if it's not on there because it's my benchmark fraction. And then 1/4 and 4/5. All right, I'm going to take my 1/2 and draw my straight line down. That's not such a straight line. It's kind of curvy. Pretend. All right, 4/5 is greater than 1/2 because it falls after it. 1/4 is less than 1/2 because it falls before it. So that means that 1/4 is less than 4/5. Make sure you're checking your work with the ones I'm doing, and then the ones I don't do, you can just check with the answer key that is on Canvas. All right, we'll do the next one. Erase, erase, erase. We'll do number 10. 10 is 3/6 and 2/4. So we need our benchmark fraction first, which is 1/2. And then I need a number line cut up into 6 pieces. 6 equal pieces. Try and make them as equal as you can. So we have 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and then 6/6, which is a whole. And then 2/4. So I need a number line cut into 4ths. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 4/4, which is whole. All right, now I need to graph them. So I have 1/2, and then I'm working with 3/6, and then I'm working with 2/4. So I'm going to take my 1/2 and I'm going to draw my straight line down. And for this one, I hit 3/6 and 2/4 exactly, which means they are both equal to 1/2. And if they are both equal to 1/2, that means that they are equal to each other. So 3/6 is equal to 2/4. They all line up exactly. So they are equal. That was number 10. Let's do number 12. We'll just go with the pattern of evens here. And then number 12 will be the last one that we do and go over. Erase, erase, erase. All right, what we need to do for number 12 is we need to order them from least to greatest. Order them from least to greatest. And 1/2 is already on there. Our benchmark fraction is already on there, which is great. So let's start graphing on our number line. First, we're going to do 1/2. Then we need 3/8. So we need to divide our number line into 8 equal pieces. My number line's not going to be big enough. Let me start that one over. Got to make my line smaller. If you mess up, that's okay. We all mess up. Okay, let's do it in half, and then in half again, and then in half again. There we go. If you do it in halves, it makes them much easier. So we have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and then 8/8, which is whole. Then we have 3/5. So I need a number line that's cut up into fifths. Since 5 is an odd number, I can't just start dividing it in half because it won't work that way. So I just have to guess the best I can and do 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and then 5/5, which is whole. All right, now let's graph them. I need 1/2, then I need 3/8, and then I need 3/5. Perfect. Now I'm going to take my benchmark fraction, draw my straight line down, and that puts it in order for me. So if I'm looking at all 3 number lines and comparing them, the first fraction I get to is 3/8. Then I get to 1/2. Then I get to 3/5. So in order from least to greatest, we have 3/8 first, then 1/2, then 3/5. Do we see how they fall? 1, 2, 3. And now make sure you pay attention to the directions if it says from least to greatest or from greatest to least greatest, all right? Pay attention to the order they want you to do it in because I wouldn't want you to lose points over a silly mistake like not reading directions. All right, what you need to do now is do the homework page, and I will post the answers to the homework key for tomorrow on tomorrow's module on Canvas. All right, and then on Friday, all you have to do is check my progress over what we've learned this week. There's no video, but I will post the answer key so you can check your work. All right, so that means I will not be posting another math video for you until Monday. That's a long time, but I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you on Monday.